Why do 75% of cricket fans obsess over the perfect cover drive? Let's find out together. Whether you're new to the game or a seasoned pro, this is your ultimate cricket destination. We dive into epic matches, break down legendary innings, and chat with cricket's biggest stars. From the thrill of a six to the strategy behind every wicket, we cover it all. Join us as we celebrate the spirit of cricket, one over at a time. Subscribe now and never miss a moment of the action. Kickstart your cricket journey with us, where every fan becomes a part of the team. Let's play ball.
Hello and welcome to Cricket Canvas, a program which promises to be slightly different in the sense that we'll talk a lot about the history of the game, players whom not much has been talked about, whom we would also like to call the unsung heroes of the game. And to start off, who better than someone who epitomized bravery on the cricket field, one of the most courageous batters Indian cricket has seen. He partnered the great Sunil Gavaskar in 29 test matches and never flinched away from fast bowling, even though he grew up in an environment he didn't face many fast bowlers at the domestic level. But the transition that he made to international cricket was something which had to be seen to be believed. I'm talking about none other than someone who served Indian cricket for more than 50 years, unfortunately left us some time ago, the late Aunshuman Gaekwad. And who better to speak about his career than someone who has researched a lot on Gaekwad? I'm speaking about cricket writer Aditya Bhushan, who has already authored 4 books. One which includes one of his subjects, of course, is Anshuman Gaekwad, in a book aptly titled, it's his official biography, Guts Amidst Bloodbath. And I would also, a little later, be joined by former first-class cricketer Rajesh Jadhav. But first and foremost, a very warm welcome to you, Aditya.
Thanks a lot. Great to be here.
Aditya, let's start off with Anshuman Gaekwad. You would have had so many subjects to choose from when you thought of writing a book. How come Anshuman Gaekwad?
So people of my generation remember Anshuman Gaekwad as the coach who was with Sachin Tendulkar during the famous Desert Storm, who ran on the cricket field when Anil Kumble took 10 wickets at Firoz Shah Kotla. But do people of my generation and the subsequent generations know about his bravery? Do they know that he was also a great opening batsman? Unfortunately, no. Now, Indian cricket has got a pantheon of cricket stars, right from C.K. Naidu to the Gavaskars, Vengsakars, Vinu Mankad, Tendulkar, and now Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma. But among them, there are others as well who may not have a great batting average as, say, a Gavaskar, or may not have scored as many centuries as a Tendulkar. But in their own capacities, they have served Indian cricket in a great way. And for Anshuman Gaekwad, I'll just say a line. Wickets taken and the runs scored can be tallied, but the quality of bravery can't be quantified. Hence, Anshuman Gaekwad.
Oh, well, very well put, Aditya. And also, during your research, you would have also come across how we grew up in the erstwhile princely state of Baroda. And then the collegiate cricket, university cricket was big those days. He made his entry through university cricket to first class. And that very memorable, I must say, series debut against the mighty West Indians in 74-75. If you could talk us through that passage of time.
Sure. So I'll just take you back in time. Now, we all know that Anshuman Gaekwad's father, Dattaji Rao Gaekwad, was India's captain. But that's not the only cricket connection that Anshuman Gaekwad had. His maternal grandfather, W.N. Ghorpade, was the captain when Baroda won the Ranji Trophy title for the first time in 1942-43. So cricket ran in his blood. Now, Anshuman Gaekwad, it would be hard to believe that such a player, in fact, made his first-class debut batting at number 9. He was actually picked in the team as an off-spinner, and he continued bowling off-spin later on also in domestic cricket. But slowly, he graduated into a middle-order batsman in first-class cricket, and of course, later on as an opening batsman for India. Now, Anshuman Gaekwad, in those days, universities cricket was a big thing. That was a stepping stone to get into the Indian team. And Anshuman Gaekwad followed the same path. So the West Indies, the mighty West Indies, were on the tour to India in 1974-75. Anshuman Gaekwad was a promising young batsman during that time. He was first picked in the West Zone team to play against West Indies at Pune. Now, he was also selected in the combined universities team, which was to play again with the West Indies after a few days at Indore. Now, what was told to Anshuman Gaekwad is that he is going to travel with the West Indies team from Pune to Indore. So he packed his bag, and on the last day of the game, he is told that there isn't enough place in the plane, and he has to figure out himself. Now, in those days, it wasn't that easy to travel from Pune to Indore. So Anshuman Gaekwad did not know what to do. He took some advice of some of his friends and well-wishers and traveled to Bombay, hoping that he will get a train to Indore. Unfortunately, he did not get. So again, he was really devastated that what he should do. With no option left, he thought best is to go to Baroda, and probably his chance is gone. When he reached Baroda, his parents, his friends said that he can't let this chance go away. And they ensured that he got into a train, maybe just sat in a general compartment next to a toilet, wasn't able to sleep. He reaches on the morning around 6 o'clock of the match at Indore. He goes to the hotel. He just hopes that the team is not going to bat first, and he would get some time before going to face the West Indies bowlers. And as luck would have had it, the combined universities batted first. Anshuman Gaekwad, who hadn't slept for the last 2 days, came out, scored a magnificent second 105, and that really prompted his inclusion in the Indian team. Now, the inclusion in the Indian team also was quite dramatic. He walked into bat at the famous Eden Garden Stadium with more than 1 lakh spectators. He comes into the middle with the team at 32 for 3. And when he's walking into the middle, it's not that a wicket has fallen, but his childhood hero and captain of India, Tiger Patodi, had been injured. He had a handkerchief on his chin, blood's dripping down, and that's the first sight that Anshuman Gaekwad had of Test cricket. He goes into the middle. The batsman at the other end is who became later on his great friend, the great Gundappa Vishwanath. Vishwanath tells him that the youngster need not worry and the pitch is perfectly all right. But Anshuman Gaekwad was scared, as any youngster would be. But as he took his guard, he could see blood around him. It was as if he had walked into a murder scene. In that scenario, he went there, scored 36. Again, in terms of statistics, may not be those 36 runs may not weigh in terms of one of the great innings. But for a youngster making his debut in the circumstances, it was really, and I think that innings really epitomized what Anshuman Gaekwad's career would be. It was blood, blood, and blood. In the next test match at Chennai, and that innings actually helped India post a good total. It was a low scoring game and was instrumental in a way, at least it contributed a deal to the victory. The next test match at Madras. Now, most of the Indian cricket fans would remember that match for Vishwanath's 97, probably one of the best under 100 innings played on Indian soil. But what people don't remember is that a certain Anshuman Gaekwad scored 80 in the second innings of that. Now, if the pitch was difficult in the first innings, one can imagine how it would have been in the third inning. But Anshuman Gaekwad scored 80, and the West Indies fast bowlers and the teammates whomsoever I spoke to acknowledged the role that Anshuman Gaekwad played in that match and how it helped in India's victory. So that's how Anshuman Gaekwad's journey began and his debut series.
Well, Aditya, you've taken us all our viewers into that time. That was a series, as you very rightly said, very interesting, hard-fought series. There are 5 test matches, and all the 5 test matches produced results. The great Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi was called out of retirement to captain India. And, then that test match at Chennai, or rather Madras that you spoke about. And it's quite the right time to bring our other guest, first-class cricketer Rajesh Jadhav, because he was growing up that time, dreams in his eyes of becoming a cricketer. Rajesh, a very warm welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kishore.
Rajesh, if you could, your early memories, you would have been started playing cricket in the late 80s, then, blossomed in the 90s. You would have seen, watched Gaekwad very closely. Also, as a very keen student of the game, princely states used to play a big part. Now we are sponsors. But those days it was princely states who used to sponsor cricketers. And Anshuman Gaekwad belonged to the erstwhile princely state of Baroda. So your memories, Rajesh.
I remember 1974 series, which was about the West Indies, and West Indies also had a lot of youngsters in those days, like Gordon Greenidge, Vivian Richard. They all made their debut. And another great player was Lawrence Rowe, but he was injured in the West Zone match against West Indies. So my saying about Gaekwad is he came from a princely and a cricketing fraternity family in the sense. And Baroda had a big name of Vijay Hazare, his maternal uncle, his own father. So cricket was around him. And luckily for Gaekwad he was from the princely family. He had the advantage of practicing at Moti Bagh ground, which is one of the best ground in those days. Another thing, Gaekwad's technique-wise, I would say he was more suited to the matting type of wickets. In the sense he on the matting, you are a good player of back foot and normally square cut and good hooker. So that advantage Anshuman Gaekwad got against playing West Indies. West Indies series was one of the toughest series. In the sense Gaekwad came playing Ranji Trophy where there was no crowd and suddenly come into a test arena where such a 40-30,000 tests sorry, in the sense the crowd is there and you have to play your debut match again, that too against one of the great teams of West Indies. So Gaekwad survived those initials in the sense, those days 36 was like his more than 50 runs in that first test, and second test which he scored 84 crucial runs to level the series. And that 84 helped India to win the fourth test match and level the series and bring the fifth test match at Wankhede for the rubber in the sense, and it was first test match at Wankhede. So I seen Gaekwad very closely, his batting technique. He had a good backlip in the sense, because of his backlip and being a good in height, he was able to counter fast bowlers. Another important thing happened to Gaekwad, got a chance very early in the sense, no doubt he scored 100 against the West Indies selection match against for combined. India lost the series in England. Aditya where he scored the lowest 42. And then the whole team changed when Patodi was brought back for the series. There were a lot of youngsters were given, not youngsters, I would say Hemant Kanetkar, Sudhir Naik, Pataji Sharma. All these batsmen were given chance, but they were not successful. Only Gaekwad was successful. And another advantage in the series, what happened, Gavaskar got injured in a Ranji Trophy match on a matting wicket against Pandurang Sagar Maharashtra in Mumbai. So the responsibility came on Gaekwad and he openly took that challenge and was successful. And I think that series will always remain as one of the best series which I watched in my whole life. In the sense, it was so interesting, one after the another. Losing, India were 2 down, then coming back in Calcutta and Madras, and then the final match. Final match was a different story, but I would say I saw Gaekwad very closely in that match. He scored 42 in the final test. Second, he got out early, but he was a great guy.
That's right, Rajesh. That's right. Which also takes me back to Aditya. And the most defining moment of Anshuman Gaekwad's career was what is infamous, bloodbath at Jamaica, Sabina Park, Jamaica, as it's often referred to. Aditya, during your research, speaking to a lot of his contemporaries, opponents, can you just bring out that picture? That was not a very rosy picture. It's a very dismal picture, but if you could paint it up for us.
Absolutely. It wasn't rosy at all. And the team, when they came back to India, some of the people had remarked that they resembled soldiers after returning from a war. And Bishan Singh Bedi had rightly said it wasn't cricket. It was his famous line, it wasn't cricket. In fact, Gundappa Vishwanath, who was part of the series, had told me that so far we had just heard about bodyline. This was playing bodyline. But again, to give some context before that series, Clive Lloyd was probably his captaincy was at stake. West Indies had lost in Australia. Just prior to this match at Sabina Park, India had famously chased 400 runs, courtesy centuries by the great Gavaskar and Vishwanath. But again, in that match also, a certain Anshuman Gaekwad had a good 60-run opening partnership with Gavaskar, which really laid down the foundation of that chase. And after that match, Clive Lloyd had famously told his bowlers, "Gentlemen, I gave you 400 runs. How many more runs do you need to defend?" And that brought about a change in strategy for Clive Lloyd. It was going to be pace, pace, and pace. So at Sabina Park, he has 4 fast bowlers. The response that the Indian team has, they have a 136-run opening partnership. And after lunch, suddenly the Indian openers observed that there is a change in strategy. The West Indies fast bowlers started bowling bouncers and beamers. The great Gavaskar protested to the umpires, but no one listened to him. And eventually it was inevitable. Gavaskar got out, Vishwanath got injured, Brijesh Patel got injured. So people were getting injured. But at one end, Anshuman Gaekwad was standing like a wall. In fact, at the end of the first day, he had joked to his teammates that there was a Michael holding seal all over his body. That's how much that he had gotten. But next day when he came out to bat, he was feeling all right. I mean, he said that he was seeing probably ball like a football, but the bowling was really dangerous. And his famous line that he told me, which I'll always remember, is he told me that it was like, and you in the beginning you mentioned that those were the days when people used to play without much protective gears. So he said that we were not just fighting for the match, we were fighting for our life. And he told me that you blink at the wrong time and you are history. That's what Mr. Gaekwad was up against. He made 81 before getting injured. And that knock really defined Anshuman Gaekwad for a lot of the people of that generation. And one of the very interesting things, and I'll quote Michael Holding in his book, No Holding Back, he has mentioned that many people said that the pitch was to blame because there was a ridge. But in truth, we just bowled an awful number of short balls. And that's Michael Holding, the primary weapon of Clive Lloyd, telling that this was the scenario. And in that, to play a knock which Anshuman Gaekwad did really defined him for Indian cricket, I would say, for ages to come. And also, I would like to acknowledge Michael Holding, and that's one of the reasons that probably Michael Holding and Anshuman Gaekwad, till he passed away recently, were very close friends. In fact, Michael Holding gave a very good interview for the book also. So they have buried the past, they moved ahead. Anshuman Gaekwad got injured in his ear. He still, till the time he was there, he had a problem hearing from that ear, but he continues playing. People would have given away cricket and it was a life-threatening injury. But Anshuman Gaekwad came back, and that is what really Anshuman Gaekwad was probably for people of that generation. And I think you asked me in the beginning that why Anshuman Gaekwad. I think this is one innings that all cricket lovers, in at least in India, should know about, because it was bravery it was the epitome of bravery, I would say.
Yeah, it was bravery personified, I would say, Aditya. And you mentioned that, just to add to that, you said Sunil Gavaskar went and spoke to the umpires while he was speaking to you, because Gavaskar's son, Rohan, was born when he was in New Zealand. This is a very long tour, India tour, New Zealand, and then the West Indies. It's a 4-month long tour. And apparently, Gavaskar told the umpires, I want to be alive, I want to see my child. And there was
Actually,
also another interesting story. One of the umpires in that was of Chinese descent. When Bishan Singh Bedi protested, the umpire very calmly said, Mr. Bedi, you will go back to India. I have to live here. So that
exactly.
is how hostile that test match was. And as you very rightly said, Aditya, a lot was at stake for Clive Lloyd. And now, Aditya, Rajesh, I would like to ask you, as a cricketer, we didn't have too many bespectacled cricketers during that time. Of course, Clive Lloyd was there. Anshuman Gaikwad was another. Tell us, would not have been very easy, batting wearing spectacles.
See, considering Gaekwad playing fast bowling at that period was basically one important point which I like to bring to you the notice is India didn't any had great fast bowlers. Only after Kapil Dev came, Indian batsmen started playing some pace in the net practice. Otherwise, at the Ranji Trophy level, there were no anybody who or Dilip Trophy with that great fast bowlers. So again, countering that West Indies pace, in 74 series, Andy Roberts came, and 75 is Andy Roberts and Holding. So there was no end. Four fast. I think Bernard Julian and Wember Holder was also there. So it was a very pace attack. Secondly, see, if you have seen the world of cricket, hardly any players who have been successful with specs. One is Clive Lloyd, I have seen in my generation. Then Pakistan, Zaheer Abbas. And for India, it is always Anshuman Gaikwad. Dilip Doshi was a spectacular left-arm spinner, it was okay. But Anshuman Gaikwad, I would say, it is very difficult in the conditions where India to bat because of the warm weather, hot conditions, sweating, and specs. There was no contact lenses those days. If it had been England, okay, weather is good, you don't get sweat so much, so wearing specs and playing would have been easier for him. But playing in Indian condition, you get so much of distraction when you bat with specs, the sweat. And I appreciate that he took that challenge. And the another word of the gutsy, in the sense we in the childhood is always a gutsy cricketer. But I never found anybody like Anshuman Gaikwad. That's why his name was given, he was a gutsy batsman. Because the challenges he took in his young days and successful. And as Aditya Bhushan said, he was hit on the head without a helmet. Just imagine the pace, and you cannot imagine, you get shivering in your body when you listen to those things. And then after that, he was taken to the hospital. Even then in the hospital, he said, I want to go and bat. He was telling the manager of a great late Sri Paulie Umbrika. He was telling him that I want to go and bat again in the match. So just imagine the guts they had in those days without any proper gears. Nowadays, there's a different story. But my namaskar to this great batsman.
Yeah, Rajesh, hats off to Anshuman Gaekwad. Aditya, also, you when you spoke to many of his contemporaries, opponents, I'm sure a lot of anecdotes, interesting incidents would have come up. If you could share a few of them with our viewers.
Sure, sure. So I think one of the very interesting thing had come out from Viv Richards. Again, he was a very close friend of Anshuman Gaekwad. So Viv Richards said that whenever you pronounce that name, Aunshuman, and in his accent, when Viv Richards pronounced it, he said there is a sweetness to it. And behind that sweet voice, he said, a courageous cricketer. And again, Viv Richards, the great Viv Richards, said that he mentioned that people look at numbers, statistics, and all that stuff. But he was telling me that that 81 specifically in those circumstances was just phenomenal. And he said those of us who really saw that innings can recall and say what it really meant for all of them. And he said that he fought till the end and his bravery was exceptional. So now that coming from Viv Richards, and I've spoken to a number of West Indies cricketers of that team, Sir Clive Lloyd, Michael Holding, Sir Andy Roberts, all of them had great regards for Anshuman Gaekwad. And in fact, one of the questions that I had for them was, because the Indian team had the great Gavaskar, the great Vishwanath, where would they rate really Anshuman Gaekwad? And the response was, we wouldn't rate him. I mean, there is no point in rating. Anshuman, it was a very important wicket, and we knew that it was really difficult to breach that wall. In fact, he was called as the wall. Now, we all know Rahul Dravid as the wall, but Anshuman Gaekwad, in his own right, was also a wall. And one interesting anecdote that I'll tell, which really defines Anshuman Gaekwad beyond the cricketer as well. So we all know that he was the coach of the Indian team, but he also coached Gujarat team. So he started coaching Gujarat team. He had a stint with Gujarat. Then he left the team. Now imagine a person who has coached a national side. He goes back to a state side. I mean, there was nothing for him actually. There was no media. There was no limelight, but he went there. Now in 2009, he is relaxing at his home. On a Saturday evening, he gets a call from the Chief Minister's office. And guess who is the Chief Minister of Gujarat during that time? Our own Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. He gets a call from the Chief Minister's office and says that, and Mr. Modi asks him, what are you doing tomorrow morning? So he says, nothing, sir. So Mr. Modi says, why don't you join me for breakfast? And Anshuman Gaekwad asks his wife that, please come along with me to Ahmedabad, because I think it will be just 15-20 minutes and then we'll go somewhere out. Mrs. Gaekwad accompanies Anshuman Gaekwad. They both reach Ahmedabad, go to meet the Chief Minister. Mrs. Gaekwad is waiting outside in the car. And as he goes in, our current Home Minister, Amit Shah, is also there, along with other Gujarat cricket officials. And all of them, so Narendra Modi just asked him that we want you to take over Gujarat cricket. And Anshuman Gaekwad is stunned, despite all his connections and all, probably he did not know that he was going to be offered the post of, again, head of Gujarat cricket. So he said, I need time to think. The response is, you can think whatever you want, but I want you to take over. Whatever your conditions are, let my team know, and I want you to start immediately. And when they came to know that Mrs. Gaekwad is also there, they called her and they had breakfast. And soon Anshuman Gaekwad took. And mind you, during that time, Gujarat really played well. Parthiv Patel was part of the team during that time. Many other cricketers also came out. So I think that is one incident that really stayed with me, that a person who had retired in the 80s was the coach of the Indian team probably more than a decade back, and still his state wanted him. And more than the state wanting him, he was ready to give away the lucrative job and still go up and do the coaching.
Yeah, that Aditya defines the man, a thorough gentleman, someone who was very down to earth, for all his achievements. He also went on to get a double 100 at Jalandhar against Pakistan during the fag end of his career, because Aditya, correct me if I am wrong, his career spanned from 74 to 84, international career, though he played first-class cricket for many more years after that as well.
Yes.
So, any concluding thoughts, Aditya? Because we can go on and on, because as they say, time and tide wait for no one. So Just before we say goodbye, any concluding thoughts about the great man?
I would just say that over the course, so my journey with Mr. Anshuman Gaekwad started somewhere around 2020. It was COVID time. That's when we decided to do this book on him. I would say, apart from what he has done on the cricket field, like you mentioned, he's a thorough gentleman, and the way that he treats people. I mean, he would go out of the way to ensure that people are there, and he would treat people for what they are. I would just narrate a very small incident. First time I'm going to Baroda to meet Anshuman Gaikwad. I'm going to write his biography. We have never met. We have spoken on phone many times. Now he was older than my father. He calls me and says that just message me when you are out of the airport. And I thought he will just coordinate with his driver. And out I come and I see Mr. Gaikwad in the driver's seat and says, put in your luggage and come. After that, the first thing that I'm asked is, do you eat? What all do you like to eat? Because we are going to have lunch at my house tomorrow. Today we'll have it outside, but tomorrow we'll have lunch at my home. And I want to ensure that you eat what you like. And when I went to his home the next day, I'm treated like a family guest. I mean, his entire family, his wife, his son, his daughter-in-law, everyone is around, and they are ensuring that I have a great time. I think those are the memories that would really stay with me. And lastly, just one thing I would say, when talking to Ravi Shastri, his one line to me was that Anshuman Gaikwad is one of the nicest guy in Indian cricket. And I really think that that really tells what Anshuman Gaikwad was.
Yeah, you put it very aptly. One of the nicest human beings one could have ever come across. We would all like to pay homage to this wonderful servant of Indian cricket. Time to say thank you to you, Aditya, as well as to Rajesh for sharing your thoughts about Anshuman Gaikwad. Well, that's about all we have in this inaugural episode of Cricket Canvas. But Cricket Canvas will continue to feature many such unsung heroes of Indian cricket, talk about the history of the game in the editions to come. Until then, this is host S. Kishore bidding goodbye.